Good afternoon, all of you. Welcome to the second lecture in this series. Actually, last two classes were taken by Dr. Ramya Devi, but due to some urgent things, she could not attend today. So I am taking my lecture number two today. And I'll be continuing afterwards only, because from next week onwards, they will be taking again. So at the end again, I'll come back with my other lectures. So we'll start the thing. Before the starting the lectures, I would like to tell that Dr. Dipanita Datta has told that the attendance is 75% for the students. So if your friends are not attending or you are not attending regularly, then please attend. Otherwise, because it may be a difficult situation in the end. Okay, so try to attend the classes because attendance 75% attendance is compulsory. Okay, so in the last class, I have covered these things. What is ethics, and what are the things we should have in this classes that I have discussed, and we have discussed about honesty, integrity, fairness, confidentiality, authorship, as well as plagiarism. And I'm happy that some of the students are having some queries and they have asked also. I hope I could able to clear the doubts. If you are having any doubts, you can mail me or you can ask me also. So today we'll start from here. So I have taken the screenshot of the BRC BTS website. Here the code of ethics of our publication is given. You can note down the address bts.brc.gov.in/IES/BEthic/. So if you are doing class, you will get this thing there. From here only we are discussing. In the last class only, I have started from this only. So point 3 we have discussed yesterday, and point 4 we are discussing at present. So it is available in BRC, or similar things can be applicable to other institutes students also. And because these are the guidelines which are being developed, and for each organization there may be slightly modification or changes, but the moral of the things remains same for everyone. So here one annexure is there. So we have to understand what is our ethics in BRC. BRC, this is mostly regarding to the publications, research publications. So in the end, you can see that there is an oath we have to take during our research programs. And there is an annexure that also I'll show you. So this is the annexure. So here, we have to fill all the details, and we have to submit the file. We are sending our research work for publication. So this will confirm that we have gone through the things and we are taking care of the ethical measures for our publications. So these two, yes, in the first class I would have shared, but I was not having these two slides here in the previous class. So I'm just giving in the first, and then we'll continue with the next slides. So 4.2 we have covered in the previous class. So here we'll start with the 4.3. That is the duplicate publication. So whenever we are we are preparing our work for any publication, so when a paper is submitted to a journal, it is unethical to submit the same paper or another paper with similar content to another journal as long as the first paper is under consideration for publication. So here I'll just mention that sometimes it happens that we send our research work to a particular journal and it gets delayed due to certain reasons. So we get restless, and sometimes we feel that it may get rejected. So let's apply it to another journal. So there is a probability if it is accepted in other journal, we'll withdraw or we'll take out the journal from the first. So this is a very unethical practice. So duplicate publication should never be attempted. So if you want to change the journal, it's okay. We can withdraw the journal from the first the journal, and then we can apply it to the, or we can submit to the another journal. So simultaneous, we should not submit any for research work to two journals, and not even the similar content we should send it to two different journals. So duplicate publication refers to the unethical practice of submitting the same research results to two or more journals. Sometimes I'll just give an example. We may prepare some materials and we have to apply into different applications. So first part, synthesis part may be the similar, and maybe the characterization part is similar. The applications are different. So what will do, sometimes people do, they do the previous preliminary things same, and same things they copy and paste in the two papers, and just the applications are different, but in the first part, the synthesis part and the characterization part, all the diagrams are same in two papers, and only the application last part is a little different. So they send it to two different journals, and they get two papers. So this is a very unethical practice. We have to avoid this type of practice. This is also applies to reproduction of one's own earlier published paper or results in part or in full in a new publication. We should not copy our previous things, because I have done a material preparation, and I am going for another application. So from my previous paper, I copy the synthesis and this characterization, all the diagrams, and I have put it in the second paper, and just the next application I am sending to the another journal. So I'll get two papers. This is a very unethical practice. So we have to avoid. So we should not copy our things from one paper to another, and also we should not send our work to two different journals at the same time. Whenever there is a same paper, we should not send. And if we think that our paper is more suitable into another journal, we have to first withdraw the paper from the first journal and send it for the second one. And if a similar case applies to when it is a delayed case, sometimes 3 months after, 4 months also, we don't get the right reply from the editor. So in that case, if you feel that our results should be published as early as possible, we have to first withdraw the paper from the first journal, then we have to send it to the another journal. So duplicate publication, we have to definitely avoid during our research. Next one is the data manipulation. Generating, recording, and publishing false or manipulated data are very unethical. So I'll give some examples here. So sometimes we are in hurry to complete the research work and publish the journal publications or presentation. So sometimes we do that while generating, we do some shortcut, and sometimes we should that okay, we are not getting proper readings, but after two readings, maybe 2-3, sometimes we have to do the replicate type of analysis or replicate type of measurements. So one or two we do, then we write down that yes, we have repeated for 4 times. So this is very unethical practice. Data we have to generate during data generation. We have to be very cautious, and we should not do the data manipulation in that case. And during recording of the data also. So whenever we are recording our data, there should not be any manipulation in the data. And publishing false or manipulated data are highly unethical. This includes false statements or deliberate distortion of facts or observations. Fabrication, falsification, and improper manipulation of data is patently unethical. So here last time also I had given the example that during one research I came across in some newspaper that during that migration of birds. So they have seen few birds in that particular area. So the time was less, so they have reported there are very large number of that particular migratory birds in that area. So they have they exaggerated their findings, and they have given the false statement actually. Actually, they have it is not 100% wrong. They have seen those birds definitely, and they had the photographs, but they have exaggerated the thing that they have so many data points, means so many birds they have encountered in that particular observation. So this type of things is data manipulation. This has to be completely avoided. Every effort must be made to ensure that the data collected and computations performed with complete honesty. So whenever we are generating data, whatever data you are generating, you try to give that particular data in your publication. If you feel that the data are not sufficient, then you generate more data. So you have to work little more in that case. So, but you can generate more data, and that will be a good research output. So these are the about things about data manipulation. Next one is the conflict of interest. Here, I'll just mention that what is conflict of interest? It's a situation in which an entity or individual becomes unreliable because of a clash between personal interest or professional duties or responsibilities. So we'll start explaining with a simple example at home front or from the school time. So we all have attended our school. So in school, some students, they want to be in the good book of the teachers. So what they do, if they have not done the homework, so they will just ask, they'll request you to please give your answer sheet or notebook. We'll copy, otherwise the teacher will be angry. So you'll give your particular notebook. They will copy, and they will copy very nicely. And in the class, what they will do, when the teachers enters the class, they will immediately give their notebooks as if they had done in a very nicely manner. And teacher will be not knowing the background things, and the teacher will be feeling that yes, this boy or girl has done such a nice job. And the real person, the real student who have worked for the answering the questions are from the home, when they will give the copy, the teacher may feel that, yeah, they might have copied because exactly same writings are there in the next book. So this is nothing but conflict of interest, because the student wants to show that he or she is a very nice student. So this is a conflict of interest in student. In the home front also, many times we have seen between the siblings also. Sometimes the siblings wants to please the parents, so they will tell that I have done such a nice thing. Sometimes the other sibling might have done that. So this type of conflict of interest we encounter in many places. So at home front also, in very early stages in our experience also. So this type of conflict of interest happens in the research field also. So researcher shall disclose potential conflict of interest as an author or reviewer of various publications. Here I'll give another example where such conflict of interest can arise in your workplace during your research. Like let us assume I am a research guide. So my student is there, and I should try to have give more importance to my student. So I have attended some other students, let us assume annual progress review or something like, and I have heard that, oh, that boy or girl has done something very nicely. I'll get that information, I'll pass on to my student. So my student I'll tell my student that that student has done some certain things. So you do these things, and you will publish immediately. So this is a very, very bad thing. So this is a conflict of interest. So we have to avoid this type of things. As a researcher or as a research guide, we have to be very ethical in our whatever we do during our research work. So another conflict of interest is the reviewing of papers. So reviewers of manuscripts may find that the content of the manuscript have a potential impact on their own research interests. Potential conflicts while the reviewing manuscript should be reported to the journal editor. Failure to disclose may invite charges of ethical misconduct. So whenever we get some journal publications for reviewing, we have to be ethical. We should not have conflict of interest, because while submitting the papers, we also sign an agreement that we authors do not have any conflict of interest among themselves. And the reviewer, whenever they're getting the manuscript, they also agree that there is no conflict of interest. Like I'm getting let us assume I am a reviewer and I am getting a manuscript for reviewing. And that manuscript is quite similar to my work. So what I'll do, I'll get a new idea and I'll take that idea and I'll apply in my work and I'll try to publish as if it is my innovation. So this is a conflict of interest. We have to avoid this type of conflict of interest. And if such things exist, then we have to, as a reviewer, we have to tell that no, there may be conflict of interest may happen, so we have to decline the reviewing of that particular manuscript. So whenever we are sending any publications, so authors has to declare that there is no conflict of interest between various researchers, and also the reviewers has to agree that there will be no conflict of interest. One should agree to be a reviewer or referee for research papers or theses or proposals only within their own domain of competence. Sometimes we get many manuscripts which are not exactly from our field, but some peripheral things. So we feel that okay, we can manage those things. So this also comes under conflict of interest because we are not fully equipped or fully knowledgeable to review that particular work. So in that case, there is nothing wrong in declining for the reviewing process. So one should nominate a more capable colleague whenever an assignment is outside his or her area of competence. So whenever such a reviewing a manuscript we get, we have to pass on to some colleagues. We cannot just pass on. We have to tell the editor that there are other persons who are exactly from this field. So you may send the manuscript to that person. If the editor finds the profile suitable, here the particular editor will send the manuscript. But we should not pass on to any other persons. The role of an individual as an author of a publication or as a reviewer may also conflict with one's financial, commercial, or other interests. For example, here I have given researchers who are also shareholders of a company may find themselves in a situation where their research could impact the company's financial situation. Researchers should be alert to potential conflict of interest and make full disclosures. Failure to do so may invite charges of ethical misconduct. So let us assume I am working in a particular private company and I am also doing a particular research. Last time I think I have given similar type of example. So my research output will have a conflict with my company. So in that case, we have to decline that type of work. So there should not be a conflict of interest while publishing and with your financial, wherever your financial dealings are involved. Next was the collaborative research. A piece of research usually starts with an idea from an individual and is actively driven by him or her through others might participate in the investigation. It is important to recognize the individual who initiates and coordinates the research as a nodal person. So because normally works are discussed, so it's not applicable to everybody, but in many cases this happens like it originated from one person and that person should be the nodal person and that person should coordinate the research, and for whatever is requirement that person should contact the other persons and they can work together as a group. The nodal person is expected to closely monitor the experimental procedures and formulate policies for recording data and compiling results into publications and reports. It is advisable to formulate norms in this regard, which should be made known to all the participants in the research project. The nodal person here I am telling that the person should closely monitor all the experimental procedures and policies also. Because the work may be carried out by a group of persons, and if somebody else is doing some unethical practice, that will reflect in the whole research program. And as a nodal person, it's the duty of the nodal person to monitor it everything closely. And in the beginning only, the whatever the policies are to be followed while recording, while collecting the data, that should be clearly explained to all the participants during the research work. So it will give you clarity to all the research individuals who are participating in that particular program. So in your research methodology part, it will be more discussed, like the steps involved in the research process, and every part of the research process we have to be careful. So we have to be not only careful, we have to be ethical in all the steps. Next one is the sharing of equipment. So last time also I have discussed that for many research, we require various instruments and equipments, and all the equipments may not be available with all the individuals. So there has to be sharing of the equipment. And like our BRC is a sophisticated, BRC has very nice sophisticated instruments, and that particular instrument may not be available to all the persons. So it should be open to all the possible users. For operational reasons, scientific instruments, equipment, softwares, facilities may be in the custody of a specific individual or division. However, every effort should be made to share these instruments and maximize the utilization of these public funded resources. So whatever instruments we are getting in our government organizations, so it has actually public funded. So we have to utilize to the maximum extent possible. But due to this operational reasons, it cannot be open to everybody. Only the persons who are authorized, and how it is authorized, they are having competence in doing that. They are authorized. So it should be opened up to those authorized persons. If an instrument is under a particular person or particular section or particular group, so other persons should be allowed to come if they are competent. So, but in many cases, we have seen that if a person is having an instrument, the person will keep that particular thing in a lock and key. And for everything, they have to take the permission, and you have to include the person's name. So this is an unethical practice. So if a person is competent to operate that thing, they can take the permission and they can use that particular equipment for their research. So the sharing of equipment is very much important. Whenever time sharing is appropriate, transparent procedures for this should be put in place. So if a particular instrument is loaded with so many works, then they can have a policy to prioritize the use of that particular instrument. Like you can have a logbook. From the logbook, you can book the particular instrument, and if some urgent things comes, then it can be shuffled up. Otherwise, in normal things, if whoever comes first and book that particular things, so in that manner, they should continue the sharing of the particular equipment. And a committee may be constituted to ensure fair utilization of the major experimental facilities in BRC or any other research organization. Next point is handling of data. Investigator in any given field should familiarize themselves with the methods of handling and processing data that are considered acceptable and unacceptable in their field. The procedures for recording and storing data will also vary from subject to subject, but in each case, they should be well formulated in advance and scrupulously followed. So whenever we are generating data, so we should generate data which are acceptable, and we should also be in the beginning also we should have the clarity that this type of data will not be acceptable. Like one example I'll give. So let us assume we are doing a determination of trace quantity of particular element, such as let us assume uranium in water samples, or some toxic elements like arsenic or cadmium in a water sample. And our research is based on that particular thing. And we are using certain equipments and generating data which are not actually suitable for this type of measurement. But we are just using and we are getting the data, and we are telling that arsenic or mercury or this uranium is not detectable. So, but we are not disclosing that how much is the detection limit, And we are just telling that we are not getting detectable amount in our water samples. So this is a misleading type of data it will be generating. So this type of data will not be acceptable. So whenever we are generating data, we have to see first that whatever things are acceptable and what is not acceptable. We should choose a particular technique or particular tool which is suitable for our research purpose. So during the data processing also, various softwares if we are using, we have to be cautious that which software is actually applicable for our type of work. The procedures for recording and storing data are also very important, because this data storing and data recording are very important. Just one or two examples I'll share. Like if I are doing a survey, because research is not about only scientific research, it can be a historical research, it can be a financial research, it can be a business type of research. So if I am getting a survey, for, let us assume a food habit of different persons to open a restaurant. So I'm recording the data from different people. I am reaching out to different people, and we are recording the data to know that what is their food habit. So recording of the data in that case will be has to be ethical. And the storing of the data, how we are storing our data. So because in many research, after many years also, the research output can be questionable. So in that case, we have to retrieve the data, and we have to show that these data are correctly collected and correctly analyzed. So storing of the data and recording, these are very much important. We have to give importance, and we have to apply the ethical standards while handling this type of data. And researchers should be, here I have again written the same thing. Researchers should be aware that it is not uncommon for a correctness of the research publication to be questioned even after the publication. Whenever we publish a particular research work, we feel that our work is over, and we can go to other things, and we need not worry about that particular work. But in many cases, after a few years also, the data can be questioned, the research can be questioned. Particularly with experimental work, defending a publication requires properly recorded raw data to be produced, and its absence or premature destruction could be treated suspicious. Like normally the various organizations have their policies to keep the data for a particular period of time. Normally 3 to 5 years the data has to be stored. Like if you are having a recorded spectrum, so the spectrum has to be kept for quite long time, because after few years also that can be questioned. So if you are deleting your data, everything after 1 month, and so you get some questions, and you told that I have kept it for 1 month and then I have deleted. So it will be generating a suspicious thing for you. So the data, somebody can question that whether the data really collected or the data has been manipulated. But you might have not have manipulated the data, but you have just simply deleted the data after very short time. So data should be recorded, and it has to be stored properly for quite long time, depending upon the policy decision of your organization. A well-maintained lab notebook provides not only a permanent record of the results and protocols for the future publications, but also serves as critical evidence for a claim of priority in case of patent applications, and as proof of adherence to appropriate ethical standards. So here, normally organizations like our BRC, we distribute notebooks, lab notebooks with page numbers, and the researcher has to carry out the research, and they have to record the data in that particular notebook also by date wise, and it has to be signed by their authorities. Normally the group leaders or the section heads periodically check the things, and or sometime in particular time period they check the things, and they sign in that particular notebook. So it would be an authentic record of the particular work has been really carried out in an ethical manner. So if certain things, this type of things is not there, after some times there may be questions. And if your laboratory is accredited, then this type of things is a must, because accreditation, whenever there is a accreditation, the auditors come and see that whether the lab books are properly maintained or not, it has been signed properly or not. So they just check everything to see that whether the research has been carried out in a particular manner or not. Tampering with or manipulating record in a laboratory notebook is considered fraudulent activity. So sometimes people see that data are not very correct. So they tear out some papers from the notebook sometimes. We have encountered actually. So this type of activity is a fraudulent activity. It is a very unethical activity. So if you are distributing a lab notebook with a numbered page, so this type of activity it can be really easily avoided. The research-related data, lab notebooks, and material must be stored in a secure manner so that the scientific validity of the data can be verified whenever it is required. So in that BRC guidelines, 5.4 is the thesis writing. Thesis writing I am not discussing right now, we'll be discussing afterwards. Next point is the screening of manuscript before submission or resubmission. It is prudent for authors to screen the manuscript for possible similarity with other published papers prior to their submission to journals, conferences, etc., or even the thesis. So I told that we have to avoid the plagiarism. Sometimes unknowingly we do the plagiarism because we think in a particular manner to write down the particular work. Maybe somebody else has also represented the topic in the similar manner. So in that case, unknowingly there will be a plagiarism. So this type of plagiarism has to be avoided. And in somebody has copy pasted, that also will be checked during that time. So this screening of manuscript before submission is very much important. And in BIRC, we strictly follow this type of plagiarism check or similarity check before any publications. While it is not mandatory, the authors in their own interest are advised to get their manuscripts screened for possible similarities with the existing literature before submitting to a journal using one of the IT tools made available by BIRC. In BIRC, it is in place. In Google also various plagiarism check softwares are available. So it's ethical to check the similarity check. We have to carry out the similarity check or else the plagiarism check before finalizing our research output for any publications. In BIRC, final manuscript ready for submission in MS Word format will only be screened for similarity. So whenever we are doing any research we are preparing any research output for publication in journals. In BIRC, we have to first convert it into MS Word output, and we have to send it to head SIRD for similarity check or the plagiarism check. That has to be sent from one of the author's official email account. In BIRC, this type of guidelines are there, where one of the author has to send it from an official email account and mentioning their employment number. So it will be an ethical practice to do that. Yes, we are sending the things for similarity check. Similar ethical guidelines may be extended to any other institutes of DAE or others. So if it may not be mandatory for everybody, but it is definitely ethical practice. And if a person is doing the plagiarism or the similarity check before sending to journal, then definitely it will be easier for the publications, because there will be not similarity, because whenever the paper will be submitted to a particular journal, they also many times do the similarity check, and they may, if they will find that it is having a copy from certain other papers, they will simply reject. So if you are doing the previous checking, it will be very much easier to proceed. As soon as the paper is published, it will be scrutinized by BIRC for any evidence of plagiarism. A report will be submitted by the designated office to ethics committee periodically. So these type of things are also placed in BRC, and it should be applied to other institutes. And next is the undertaking. All authors in BRC affiliation are required to sign the undertaking given in Annexure 1, because in the Code of Ethics I have shown in the first slide today's presentation. So in there is a oath and undertaking is there. So the person has to take the oath first, and then you have to, the annexure there, the person has to fill. All authors in BRC affiliation are required to sign the undertaking given in Annexure 1 and forward a copy to the respective head of the division or the head of the section. It must be understood that the responsibility of compliance to the code rests with the authors. So in the 5.7, it is written that the oath on Code of Ethics, in the oath, the person has to put their name, and it is connected to Lakshya in BRC, and it is there in BRC. It can be extended to any other organization. So they have to tell that, yes. I'll just read out the things. My name, have read the BRC Code of Ethics for publication, and hereby solemnly affirm to abide by it in letter and spirit. I will observe highest standard of honesty and truthfulness while conducting my scientific research and in all my publications. I will strive to inculcate these values among my colleagues. So this oath I am taking in the beginning, and while submitting the paper, I will put that for the particular annexure. So few more things are important in publications. One is ethics of retraction. So sometimes we publish certain things, and afterwards we find that this is not correct. I have done some mistake, and wrong information has been given to the public domain. In that, there is a way to retract the particular work. Publishers, editors, and reviewers of all scholarly publications have to be vigilant to avoid any possible unethical misconduct on their part or on part of authors. Yet, there would be cases when instances of diverse categories of unethical practices in published work are noticed after publication by the reader, author, reviewer, or editor. So it can, that particular, if somebody, any of the persons like the reader or author or reviewer, anybody finds that some unethical practice has been happened during that particular one, the publication has to be retracted. Any such situation must be immediately brought to the notice of the editor publisher, who then has to initiate proper inquiry, who should also involve seeking clarification from the authors. Depending upon the seriousness of the unethical misconduct, authors may publish an apology note, or the editor may publish expression of concern or retract the paper. The full paper can be retracted if serious case happened. In more serious cases, the editor is expected to inform the authors and the concerned host institution about the misconduct. Sometimes if serious things happens, the editor of the particular journals, they inform the organizations also. The organization has to take action in that particular serious case. So ethics of publication is, besides the intentional or unintentional ethical practices, cases of errors in judgment, interpretation of data may also be noticed by authors or readers. Such cases need to be dealt with differently by authors, editor, and the journal. They may agree to publish an erratum or even a new paper to clarify the earlier error or misjudgment. If there is not a particular misconduct or unethical practice has not been done during the publication, but due to some negligence or some unintentional things, some wrong things has been published. So in that case, some erratum we can publish along with that particular publication. So it will be a note type of thing. So it will tell that this particular portion of the things is not correct. So we are correcting it. So otherwise also a complete paper can be sent to the journal to mentioning that this first we have to tell that particular editor, and if the editor agrees, we can give a complete new paper mentioning that this portion of our work has not been has some errors due to some unnoticed or unintentional things. So this part has to be changed. So this type of changing or a new clarification has to be given if you find that our publication is having something. And similarly, if as a reader, if I am finding that something is not correct, I can write the things to the journal. So the journal can initiate the things, and they can tell the authors to give the erratum or they give the clarification. And along with, if it is not a serious thing, they can simply add the erratum or simply they add the new paper along with that particular paper. Next are the procedures. When there is some this type of cases happens that some unethical practice has been noticed. In that case, there are certain procedures. So in the point number 6, it is mentioned. First one is the reporting. Next is the processing of complaints. Next one is the investigation and disposal. 6.4 is the passing of final orders. 6.5 is the provision for appeal. So we'll just go one by one. 6.1 is the reporting of the things. So whenever, like in the previous case I told, some unethical misconduct we observe, we feel that has happened during the publication, it has to be first reported. The scientific complaint, information of unethical misconduct in BRC should be reported in confidence to the chairman standing committee on scientific ethics. It is available in BRC. So similar to if scientific committees or standing committees are available in other organizations, they can report to that committee along with relevant information and evidence. So whenever we are reporting, we have to tell that this particular portion of the publications looks like a unethical misconduct, so it has to be reported. And we have whenever we report that, we have to give the evidence also. The complaints can be made by anyone, not necessarily by the employee of BRC. They must carry the full name and the contact details with signature of the complaint. Complaint should be accompanied by supporting evidence to enable the committee to decide whether it is a prima facie case exists. The committee will submit a preliminary report to Director BRC or the head of the organization, indicating whether the prima facie case exists or not. Based on their findings, Director BRC may close the case or order further investigation by the committee. Next is the processing of the complaint. All complaints, whenever received by the organization such as BRC, it has all the complaints are acknowledged. First, they accept that yes, we have received the complaint. Confidentiality of the complaint will be protected. Otherwise, there will be a different difficult cases may arise. So confidentiality is maintained. Anonymous and pseudonymous or unsigned complaints will not be entertained, because if it is not signed by a particular person, those type of complaints are not accepted. Because whenever we are doing a complaint, there is nothing wrong in telling that yes, I am complaining because I feel that is a unethical misconduct happened during a particular publication. The complaint or the informant should await disposal of the complaint by BRC or the organization and not publicize the complaint or pursue it in any other forum during the investigation. Because during the investigation, we should not go to press or we should not publish in social media type of thing. It has to done and it has to be carried out in a particular ethical manner. So there will be no action against the complaint if the complaint turns out to be unfounded, as long as complaints were made in all sincerity and good faith. However, BRC reserves the right to proceed against the complaints if the complaints turn out upon investigation to have falsely made with deliberate intent to malign the individual or the organizations. Because if the person is intentionally doing the thing that the person should be exposed type of thing, then BRC also has the right to have complaints against that particular complaints. investigation and disposal. So whenever the complaint is received, following directors or the head of the institute's order to initiate investigation, the committee will formally communicate to the complaint to the authors, hereafter the respondents, and they seek their written explanation. The respondents are required to forward their reply within 30 days. So within stipulated time, the authors has to report that why this type of misconduct has been happened. The complainant and the respondents will be informed of the decision to initiate investigation by the committee. The respondents are required to cooperate fully with the committee. The committee will conduct its investigation fairly and expeditiously. During the investigation, the committee will examine the evidence of the record, may ask the personal interviews of the complainant and the respondents, or the communicate with the any other means as deemed fit. The committee will record the statements of respondents and report its findings and recommendations to Director BRC in the confidence. The committee should ensure that its conclusions are well reasoned and recommendations are actionable. So far, the committee will take care of the thing, and if they find that it is a really misconduct, they have to report the thing. The last one here is the passing the final orders. On receipt of the report of the committee, Director BRC will either decide to accept the report in full, accept it in partially, or reject it totally. The reason will be recorded in writing. The final order will be communicated to the respondents. The respondents are required to acknowledge the same within 10 working days of the issue. The copies of the order may be forwarded to the complainants, concerned head of the divisions, group director, etc. In case the claims of ethical misconduct against the respondent is proved, the box of professional integrity in that year's APAR will be suitably marked. So if there is a really found that some misconduct has been happened, it has to be reflected in the APAR or the confidential reports, annual reports. So there is also provision for appeal. So we'll close this here, and we'll be discussing this more detailed in the next class. Thank you.